Can you take a second and walk me through the story? Tony was harsh in this interview. Then what happened? They held a meeting because Tony wasn't just harsh to like some random Palestinian Muslim. Okay. Tony Dokoupil wasn't just aggressive and said, you sound like a fucking terror supporter to just any guy. He didn't say that to someone like myself, which would have obviously not made shockwaves in a similar vein. People get away with doing that every single day. He said that to Ta-Nehisi Coates, who is a liberal media darling. Okay, this man was Barack Obama's favorite author. He went after someone in a otherwise like super friendly, non-contentious interview setting. Okay, in a non-contentious, super friendly setting, he went after him and made it seem like he said, your writings would be in the backpack of an extremist. That's what he said. Okay, that was completely inappropriate. So here's the thing. When you do that to someone like Ta-Nehisi Coates because of his attitude change on Israel-Palestine, Ta-Nehisi Coates, fuck bro, okay, Jesus Christ, sorry. On what was otherwise supposed to be a fucking morning show puff piece, yeah, it ruffled a lot of feathers. It got multiple internal staff meetings. It caused a lot of arguments internally, okay? Caused a lot of arguments internally at CBS. At the time, is it on YouTube? I mean, I covered it. The morning show meeting, however, was dramatically cut short when a CBS spokesperson passed CBS Morning's executive producer, Shauna Thomas, a note urging her to quickly wrap it up. Sources said that it was believed that it was due to the possibility that someone was leaking details at the moment. Network employees said prior to Tuesday's meeting being torpedoed, the couple was confronted by one staffer who said his comments during the September 30th segment with Coates were extremely racist, xenophobic, and Islamophobic, while the anchor remained respectful and calm during the charged meeting. Okay, take a week off. Take a day off. Some of you are literally allergic to any kind of fucking news that is like ostensibly Palestine related. I fucking despise you. I'm just letting you know. Y'all are so fucking annoying. This isn't even like death and destruction in Gaza. This is about American media commentary. And even then you're like, whoa, Palestine for me. Whoa, it's a bridge too far. I don't want to hear about some fucking barbaric Arabs being defended. Not on my news media channel. Suck my dick. Okay? Anyway, like I'm going to get back to fucking storm coverage in a second. At the same time, Dokoupil was pressed by staffers in the Tuesday meeting on how he would handle an interview with a Palestinian guest, asserting that he would treat it the same way as his conversation with Coates. The anchor said he'd asked the guests about their politics and whether they'd agreed that Israel has a right to exist. Speaking on the condition of anonymity, 5 CBS employees told Zateo that the leaked audio of Monday's call to Barry Weiss's fervent pro-Israel outlet, the Free Press, may have been a message to intimidate them into silence. Bro, it's so funny that Israel defenders do like straight up espionage shit. Like that's a crazy thing, dude. Like who the fuck are you? Who do you think you are? Fuck Barry Weiss. Claiming that the majority of the newsroom supports network chief Wendy McMahon and the head of news gathering Adrian Rourke for initially rebuking Dokoupil, they noted the chilling effect a very loud pro-Israeli minority, many of whom hold senior positions, can have on them speaking out about biased coverage of Israel and Palestine. Sources said that while Tuesday's meetings featured network's head of standards and practices admonishing Dokoupil for ignoring CBS protocols during the Coates interview, it appears that the CBS Mornings anchor will go unpunished. Like everybody thinks that they're like little Mossad operators, you know what I mean? You're not, okay? You're just like an annoying fucking tattletale who is expending the last remaining institutional power they have in an effort to defend an apartheid regime currently and actively committing a genocide. You're cooked. Like, shut the fuck up. Yeah, you're not a spy. You're just a tattletale and objectively annoying. Despite Redstone's expressing her frustration with the way CBS News management handled the matter, CBS CEO and Paramount co-chief George Cheeks sent out a statement in support of McMahon on Wednesday. This is kind of you know what this is, for the record? This is kind of like um people always say like, Hasan, why doesn't Hasan get punished? Why doesn't Hasan get punished? He is like very clearly pro-terrorism or whatever. It's like there is a level of understanding regardless. There is a level of understanding amongst most normal people that they know that I'm like, they might not agree with what I have to say at times, especially as it pertains to American foreign policy, but they recognize that there is journalistic value and there's value in terms of the commentary in what I engage with, especially because first and foremost, I care about people spreading misinformation and I try to show every side of a particular subject. You can try to cross the wires as hard as you can. Bro, you are not a journalist. I never said I am. That's funny that you just said that. You're not that guy, pal. I never said I'm a journalist. I said there is journalistic value to what I do. I am not a journalist. I've never said I'm a journalist. But having said that, of course, even the Timothy Charlemagne interview that I did, a lot of people hate that. A lot of people hated that. They complained about it nonstop. What a lot of people also don't know is that New York Times reporters reached out to me to get access to this person. NBC reporters reached out to me to get access to this person because they too also saw that there was value in interviewing this person. Okay? There's a reason why, while I never maintain the position that I'm a fucking journalist, okay, because I'm not, there are certainly other journalists and editors and people, but ultimately it doesn't matter. Like people who are more knowledgeable on the situation, like award-winning, celebrated, well-decorated veteran journalists like Jeremy Scahill, see a very different reality there. Okay? So that's the reason why you most likely get confused if you are primed into believing that I somehow have tremendous institutional influence in the halls of Twitch and Amazon or whatever. It's not that at all. You find yourself more and more trying to plug this hole that is inconsistent in your mind. You're like, I don't understand. This guy's like, everyone around me in my Discord, everyone in my Reddit is telling me that this person is literally like pro-terrorism, not recognizing that you've been primed by Islamophobia to arrive at this opinion. Not recognizing that outside of those bubbles that you're in, many people, no matter how hard you try to massage the truth, especially those who are in this industry, in this business, don't see it the way that you do. And because there's that inconsistency there, kind of like a Trump supporter refusing to recognize climate change, you look for alternative reasons and you engage in these like grander and grander schemes. Like he must have some sort of control, some sort of influence over Twitch. And that's the reason why they're letting him do this sort of thing. Do you see what I mean? If you can't look at something critically, if you can't comprehend what is going on in front of your eyes, you end up making, grand conspiracies up. And that's precisely what's happening in this situation as well. No matter how much these outlets end up presenting a false narrative on Israel, a false narrative that is certainly backed by genuine committed believers at the tippy top of news media, okay, there are still very much normal human beings, especially who are under the age of like 40, okay, who recognize that this interview was ridiculous. The way that Tony Dokoupil presented himself was completely unprofessional. Okay? Most people still see the reality. The other institutional power I have, of course, is that I run 3-minute ad breaks at the top of the hour. Quote from Barry Weiss's op-ed about the CBS meeting. There are some people at CBS who think that Israel's existence as a state should be a part of a fair conversation, said one CBS source. Can you imagine journalists having that conversation about any other country? I can. As a matter of fact, they don't even have that as a theoretical conversation. They have that conversation regularly about every single nation that is outside of the sphere of American influence. So that's a ridiculous question. one that you can only have if you've never even entertained the alternative, and you just take it for granted that everyone feels that way. Anyway, the 3-minute ad break is upon us. Regardless, here it is. That's it. That's what's funny about this, is that the fair conversation that should be taking place that Ta-Nehisi Coates was having is not whether or not Israel should exist. It's whether or not Israel should exist in the ways that it currently does. And the answer is one that Zionists do not like. Because the answer is no. Israel should not exist as an apartheid state. That is a very simple, very easy answer to a not so complicated question. Everything else that counters that narrative is just basically trying to claw your way up back to this fucking mountain where you want to posture yourself as a moral person in polite society as you simultaneously present the most fascist arguments I've ever heard in my entire life. And the only way that you can get away with presenting these fascist arguments, the only reason why you can get away with presenting these fascist arguments and still maintaining your like elite liberal attitude and you know, go to these fucking cocktail circuits and whatnot, is because most people are also primed into thinking that Palestinians are not human beings. That's it. Furthermore, the ADL met with McMahon this week and made it clear that Dokoupil merely challenged Coates' one-sided views on the Israel-Palestine conflict. The ADL as an institution has lost all fucking significance, has lost all relevance, and it's really funny. And I suspect, this is anecdotal, obviously, I suspect the ADL no longer has relevance even like inside of the Jewish community in the United States of America, because I saw Zionist Jews getting mad at the ADL time and time again for some of the very obvious missteps that they made in an effort to like lend credibility to people who were serial anti-Semites like Elon Musk, right? Like that was such a bold move from the Apartheid Defense League that the former president of the ADL was like, what the fuck are you doing? The ADL has lost so much favor that even fucking Wikipedia doesn't consider it to be like a solid resource. Lost in all this kerfuffle, though, the fact that Dokoupil, by his own admission, believes that he is above the law. While the network has strictly defined rules that the rest of his news colleagues follow, Dokoupil essentially let them know on Tuesday that those rules don't apply to him. Meanwhile, morale continues to sink at CBS News over how all of this is played out, especially with Tuesday's meeting falling apart quickly, which left Thomas, who oversaw the meeting, in tears. Still, a network insider pointed out that there's an enormous amount of support for Wendy and Adrienne and the team who reviewed this and worked on this. The final straw, even before Coates was all but accused of being anti-Semitic by Dokoupil last week, the CBS anchor had raised eyebrows at the network over the past year with his overt editorializing, especially regarding topics involving Israel and Gaza. If Tony would just shut the fuck up, none of this would be happening, one CBS insider told Zateo. For instance, following a report on April in the University of Southern California canceling its Muslim valedictorian speech over safety concerns, in air quotes, due to her pro-Palestinian views, Dokoupil said it spoke to a bigger debate about what's acceptable public speech and suggested the student had called for the complete abolishment of Israel, prompting internal complaints. She had not. Okay? Additionally, sources who spoke to Zateo noted that the Coates interview wasn't the only moment from the September 30th broadcast that left staffers and management displeased with Dokoupil. Reporting from the ground in Beirut following the assassination of Hezbollah leader Hassan Nasrallah and amid Israel's ongoing airstrikes, CBS foreign correspondent Imtiaz Tiab noted that Israel was preparing a ground invasion that has the potential of being far deadlier than anything we've seen so far. Wrapping up the segment, Dokoupil added, if Hezbollah thought that Israel was going to graciously, I remember this. I remember covering this in real time. I remember this news broadcast because I was in awe that he had the audacity to fucking say this out loud. If you recall, we watched it in real time. If he said, if Hezbollah thought that Israel was going to graciously take a year full of rockets, Hezbollah miscalculated. While reporting from a literal war zone, Tiab appeared somewhat irked with his colleague's flippant remark. Dokoupil, meanwhile, quickly segued into an interview with former Trump National Security Advisor H.R. McMaster to talk about the violence in the Middle East, who wasn't subjected to any real level of scrutiny from Dokoupil. Anyway, but yeah, it was the sit down with Coates promoting his new book, The Message, that was the straw that broke the camel's back. While co-host Nate Burleson stuck to the plan with his first question, Dokoupil immediately deviated from the script. The anchor said Coates' book would not be out of place in the backpack of an extremist, wondered if the author was offended by the Jewish state, and questioned why he didn't include appropriate context about the Palestinians' role in their own oppression. To which I think Ta-Nehisi Coates dealt with graciously, maintaining his moral clarity on the utterly unconscionable and inhumane system of governance that is apartheid. That is what Israel is. He also, in my opinion, did a fantastic job saying you can get that perspective in every fucking outlet of mainstream media, in every goddamn mainstream media news outlet. Rarely does anyone ever talk about the plight of the Palestinians. He did a fantastic job. He did not come across angry. And I think part of that is because Ta-Nehisi Coates is not Palestinian. He's not Arab. He's not Muslim. Okay? Not only is he, very well media trained, but beyond that, I think considering that he even worked for The Atlantic, which is run by a fucking former Israeli concentration camp guard, he has never had to withstand this kind of scrutiny before, so it's not as emotionally impactful to him directly. He was not baited by it. Yeah, there's no shortage of that perspective in American media, Coates calmly responded. Dokoupil's hijacking of the interview left both Burleson and co-host Gayle King largely sidelined throughout the discussion. In fact, King had planned to ask Coates about Hamas's role in the war with Israel, something that the author revealed in a podcast interview with Trevor Noah. According to Coates, King had approached him backstage with his book full of her handwritten notes, explaining that she was going to ask him some specific questions. Well, on the one hand, Dokoupil probably did me a service by just kind of commandeering that interview. I don't think he did Nate and Gayle a service, and I'm really, really sorry for them, he told Noah. But yeah, a lot of people understandably ripped into this interview, and it is kind of shocking that Ta-Nehisi Coates was able to learn all of the lessons that Western defenders of Palestinian emancipation and activists have learned over the course of many, many decades, seemingly overnight. Okay, because his change of heart came, I think, like a couple years ago, but like he very actively started talking about this a couple months ago, post October 7. The way to, you always, and I repeat this to a lot of new leftists out there, if you are thinking that you can be even a fraction as callous in your indifference to violence in the same way that defenders of Israel are in broad daylight, and they can call for your death if they want to without any sort of scrutiny whatsoever. Many such examples. Sarah Silverman, Amy Schumer, fucking, Rabbi Shmuley, many examples in Western media of such a reality. You would be wrong if you think that you can be as callous. You can't. You have to always put your best foot forward. And even if people are provoking you by calling you horrifying things that you do not agree with at all, like anti-Semitic or terrorist supporter, you want civilians to die, things like that, you can't respond with emotion. If you do, then, the broader majority of the audience that is not tuned into understanding the daily struggles of the Palestinian person are going to cast you aside as, a terrorism supporter.